Reading is from the book of 2 Kings, chapter 5, the first 14 verses. Reference is made there to Aram, and geographically we would probably better know that as Syria. So we'll read Aram as it's printed here. I might be referring to Syria later in the sermon, but it's one and the same place. Hear the reading. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Aram, was a great man and in high favor with his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Aram. The man, though a mighty warrior, suffered from leprosy. Now the Arameans, on one of their raids, had taken a young girl captive from the land of Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "If only my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy." So Naaman went in and told his Lord just what the girl from the land of Israel had said. And the king of Aram said, "Go then, and I will send along a letter to the king of Israel." He went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, which would be about 750 pounds. 6,000 shekels of gold, which would be about 150 pounds, and 10 sets of garments. He brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, "When this letter reaches you, know that I have sent to you my servant Naaman, that you may cure him of his leprosy." When the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God to give death or life, that this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Just look and see how he's trying to pick a quarrel with me." But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent a message to the king. "Why have you torn your clothes? Let him come to me, that he may learn that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and halted at the entrance of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean." But Naaman became angry and went away, saying, "I thought that for me he would surely come out and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, and would wave his hand over the spot and cure the leprosy. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" He turned and went away in a rage. But his servants approached and said to him, "Father, if the prophet had commanded you to do something difficult, would you not have done it? How much more when all he said to you was wash and be clean?" So he went down and immersed himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God. His flesh was restored like the flesh of a young boy, and he was clean. Naaman was a great man, a very great man. He was very powerful. He was the top commander of the army of the king of Syria. He had earned all the credentials of power and authority. He was held in high honor by all the people and was especially favored by the king. And he had laid down a very impressive record of military victories for Syria. He was a mighty warrior. Naaman was a great man, a very great man. But Naaman had leprosy, that ugly, debilitating disease that was not simply a physical sickness, but in Naaman's day, it rendered one a social outcast, unclean, untouchable. No matter who you were no better than a dead man. Naaman was a great man. Now, militarily, Naaman is impotent. Politically, he's a nobody. Socially, he's an outcast. Naaman was the commander of all the Syrian armies, but he had no command over this dreadful sickness. Naaman was a mighty warrior, but he couldn't win the battle over this debilitating disease. He was in high favor with the king, but edicts and letters with the highest imprimatur and seal of the highest human authority could not bring about any change in this damnable scourge. Naaman is accustomed to being in charge. He's used to being in control. He has at his command all the military forces of the king, but now all the king's horses and all the king's men can't put Naaman together again. The script of Naaman's life, I think, is the script of many a life. It's amazing, isn't it, how some one thing that you can't control can mess everything else up and can bring you to a seeming standstill, to a dead end. Maybe a relational thing or a domestic issue. It may be a money problem or perhaps an illness, as it was with Naaman, or some sort of an addiction. It may be some huge catastrophic situation that just suddenly rises up in front of you like a brick wall. It may be an emergency that just goes off like an untimed bomb. It may be some random incidental happenstance, but it just sweeps the feet out from under you. Or it may be a much more subtle thing that slowly and quietly eats away at you. And at first, it's easily denied and managed, but it gains on you, till at last it begins to take over. It begins to control everything about you, till it finally owns you. It may be the thing that you don't like about yourself that you can't change. And in some way or other, Naaman's story becomes your story. Well, it happened that in the course of Naaman's military raids, they had taken captive a young Israelite girl. And as she was brought back to Syria,